Your attachment style can make the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful relationship. But what are attachment styles? How are they developed? And can we change attachment styles over time? This is what we're going to talk about today. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bri and I am a pre-qualified psychologist. Today we are going to talk about attachment styles, and this video is going to be divided into chapters that you can find here. At the end of the video, I'm also going to add an extra content on how attachment styles show up in therapy. I don't know if this is something that many people will find interesting, so I'm just going to leave it at the end and you can choose to watch it or not to watch it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Chapter 1. Early research on attachment styles. In 1970, Mary Ainsworth developed an experiment that involved children between 12 and 18 months old and their primary caregiver. In the experiment, they put children in a room, allowing them to explore the environment around them with their caregiver present. At one point, a stranger entered the room and started to talk with the caregiver. After a brief conversation, the caregiver left the room and the separation lasted for a couple of minutes. The caregiver then returned to the room, reuniting with their children, and had a brief period to reconnect before leaving the room and coming back again. Depending on the children's reaction to the situation, Mary Ainsworth categorized the children into 4 groups. The secure children were those that were a little bit distressed when the caregiver left, but seek comfort from them when the caregiver returned. They were also observed to explore the environment freely throughout the experiment, with and without the caregiver present. The anxious children were those that became very distressed when the caregiver left and were not easily comforted when the caregiver came back. They resisted the contact with the caregiver and showed frustration and anger. They displayed clingy behavior and had difficulties exploring the environment even when the caregiver was present. The avoidant children were those that did not show much distress when the caregiver left and did not seek comfort when the caregiver returned, preferring to explore the environment around them instead. With regards to the last group, Mary Ainsworth called this the disorganized group. These were children that showed contradictory and disoriented behavior when the caregiver came back, such as freezing or rocking back and forth. In general, they were noted not to have any particular coping skills when the caregiver left and then come back. Chapter 2. The characteristic of each attachment style in adulthood. Now that we have seen how children might display attachment styles early in their life, we are going to see how these attachment styles are shown in adulthood. If you're wondering which your attachment style could be, then listen carefully because you might find out from each attachment style's description. Individuals with a secure attachment style have a positive view of themselves and others. They feel comfortable in relying on others and having other people relying on them. They are usually trustful and feel confident in their relationships. People with an anxious attachment style usually have negative view of themselves, but positive views of others. They may feel insecure in their relationship and constantly fear abandonment and rejection. They need frequent reassurance and become overly dependent on others. People with an avoidant attachment style have a positive view of themselves, but a negative view of others. They avoid any kind of emotional closeness and prioritize their independence. They have difficulty trusting others and may distance themselves when they feel too vulnerable or too close to them. People with a disorganized attachment style present with both anxious and avoidant behaviors. They have a negative view of themselves and of others. They desire closeness, but they are also scared of intimacy, which leads them to oscillating between seeking and avoiding emotional connection. Chapter 3. How are the different attachment styles developed? Now we understand how the different attachment styles present in childhood and adulthood. But how do we even get there? Why do different people present with different attachment styles? According to Ainsworth and another colleague, Bowlby, also studied attachment styles. The development of attachment styles depends on early interactions with caregivers at times of needs. If when children are distressed, the caregiver responds consistently in a loving way, attending to their needs, the children will develop a secure attachment style. If, on the other hand, the parent tend not to attend their children's needs, are absent figures and expect their children to suit themselves at times of needs, instead of giving comfort, the children will develop an avoidant attachment style. This may lead them to believe that nobody apart from them is able to meet their needs, and for this reason, they don't need other people to rely on in their lives. If, on the other hand, the caregiver responds inconsistently by showing love and affection some of the time, but being absent other times, then the children might develop an anxious attachment style, as they will believe that other people cannot be relied upon and will live in fear of abandonment and rejection. This is usually caused by an uncertainty about the future, not knowing what to expect from their attachment figures. With regards to the disorganized attachment style, this is usually developed by children that experience abuse, neglect, and severe trauma. These very negative early experiences will make them fear the world around them, whilst also being unable to regulate their emotions and having difficulties in forming stable and satisfying relationships. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a thumbs up or leave a comment, as it really helps the algorithm apparently. Chapter 4. Couples that work and couples that don't work. Now that we have understood how the different attachment styles present and are developed, we now need to understand the most important thing. How do they show up in relationships? As a general rule, relationships that have even one secure person will work well. This is because people with a secure attachment style can be empathetic towards the needs of their partners, communicate in an efficient way, fostering trust and security. This good communication skill also helps resolve conflict and de-escalate tensions in anxious, avoidant, and disorganized individuals. On the other hand, two anxious and two avoid individuals in a couple could work, although it is very likely that these combinations might face challenges. Two anxious individuals may feed into each other's insecurity and fear of abandonment, creating a cycle of codependence, whilst a relationship with two avoidant individuals may lack intimacy and connection. However, these sorts of relationships are very rare, because it is unlikely that two anxious individuals will be attracted by each other, and the same is true for two avoidant individuals. However, anxious and avoidant individuals are very attracted by each other. This is because these attachment styles complement each other. Let's start by saying that our brains don't like to be wrong, because being wrong for our brain will mean rewiring our entire belief system. So we constantly look for ways to validate our thoughts and beliefs on the world. And this is what anxious and avoidant individuals do when they get in relationships together. Anxious will confirm to avoidants that people are clingy, want to be in their space, and need more attention than avoidant individuals can give them. On the other hand, avoidant will confirm to anxious that they are not worthy of love, that people are unreliable and won't be with them for long. Also, the nature of anxious and avoidant relationships mean that anxious will seek closeness, whilst avoidant will seek independence. This dynamic creates a push-pull situation in the relationship, with anxious individuals pursuing closeness, whilst avoidant individuals trying to maintain their independence and withdraw. Needless to say that these dynamics don't work and often can result in toxic relationships. Also, everything I'm saying for anxious and avoidant individuals will also be true for people with a disorganized attachment style, as they will present with both anxious and avoidant characteristics. I think it is important to mention that there are 4 attachment styles, only one of which is secure. So the likelihood of having a secure attachment style or ending up in a relationship with someone secure will statistically be lower than having any of the 3, insecure attachment style or ending up in a relationship with someone with the insecure attachment styles. Chapter 5. Changing attachment styles. With all of this clarified, the question comes natural. Can we change our attachment style, or we are stuck with it until the end of our days? Research shows that although attachment styles are relatively stable, they can change over time. And unfortunately, this is true in both a positive and negative way. In fact, someone with a secure attachment style that ends up in a relationship with someone that, let's say, cheats on them all the time, might develop later in life an insecure attachment style. However, it is also possible for anxious, avoidant, and disorganized ambivalent individuals to develop more secure attachment styles. The first way to do so is through therapy. Therapy can help you develop more self-awareness and challenge your maladaptive relationships behaviors. Also, being in a relationship with someone with a secure attachment style can make insecure individuals more secure themselves, as we have discussed before. Secure individuals are sensitive to the partner's needs and have great communication skills that make them able to resolve conflicts and support their partners when needed. And coming back to communication skills, according to Amirlevine, the author of the book Attached, effective communication can be a way to become more secure in our relationships in general, as by communicating your needs and wishes, you will be able to determine whether your date will be able to understand your needs and put your well-being first. But through effective communication, you can make sure that your needs are met in an already existing relationship. By communicating your needs, you are making it easier for your partner to meet them. And finally, by communicating effectively, you will also role model to your partner, prompting them to communicate more effectively themselves. If you are an anxious individual, you can turn to effective communication when you realize that you're starting to display some unhelpful behaviors, such as not answering phone calls, lashing out on someone, threatening to leave. Instead of doing all of this, you can stop, find out what your real needs are and how they're not being met, and communicate them once you are more calm. If you are an avoidant individual, you can use effective communication to tell your partner that you need some time for yourself. You can just explain to your partner that you need some space and that you will want to find this space in a way that is comfortable to your partner as well. You can also suggest alternatives to make sure that your partner needs are also taken care for. Assertiveness is a very helpful skill to be able to communicate your needs effectively, which might be the topic of a future video. To wrap up, attachment styles are developed in childhood and strongly influence our relationships in adulthood. By finding out and understanding our attachment style, you can make some steps towards finding the right partner for you or improve your already existing relationship. And this brings us to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If that's the case, you can subscribe to the channel to avoid missing future videos. If you like this video, you might also find my video on mastering self-control to be successful helpful. I am going to leave it somewhere here or on the end screen. As usual, I'm going to leave some references in the description box below, where you will also find my socials and my website. And that is really all for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! So therapy is a form of relationship itself. And for this reason, in psychology, we call the relationship between therapy and client a therapeutic relationship. Within a therapeutic relationship, your attachment style might come up. So, for example, if you are an avoidant individual, it might be that you may think that you don't need therapy at all, or that you don't really want to go to therapy. And even if you decided to go to therapy, you might decide not to disclose some things to your therapist, to not be very open and honest with them. On the other hand, if you are an anxious individual, you might start realizing that you are extremely dependent on your therapist. Within the therapy room, you might realize that you try very hard to make your therapist like you. You might be very scared that your therapist decide not to see you anymore. And if the therapeutic contact was to come to an end, you might feel very scared and feel a sense of abandonment and rejection from your therapist. I believe it is very important to be aware of all of these dynamics, because if you decide to go to therapy, it is very likely that your attachment style will have some sort of impact on the work that you're doing, and being aware of these dynamics might really help you prevent them. If you stayed for the extra content, thank you so much. Let me know your thoughts in the description box below. I'll see you in the next video.